The movie The Green Mile. In the movie The Green Mile, Tom Hanks plays the role of a police officer in charge of a death row prison. The story goes on, and you get to see the various kinds of people that this police, we're going to call him a police chief, he's not a police chief, but he's in charge. So we're going to see the various types of criminals that cross his path. Some are violent and angry, and you say, sure, that person deserves death. Others are repentant. They committed the crime, and they acknowledge it, and they feel bad about it. And you say, well, that's a tough situation. But others, you're left wondering, did this person really do it? They deny it all the way up to the end. You see people that are quiet, people that are angry, people that are sad, as they sit in their prison cell, waiting for their execution. And you walk with Tom Hanks as he takes them down the Green Mile, which is the tile on the floor. The color of the hallway leading to the executioner's chair is green, kind of a lime green. And you walk with him, and you watch through his eyes as he sees the criminals passing through his gates. And everything is going fine. He's okay with his job. He's okay with his duties. He's okay with caring for these many times hardened criminals that the rest of society has condemned. And he's okay with that. Until one day, when a prisoner comes, the biggest man he had ever seen. This guy, when he gets off the paddy wagon pulls in, and the wheels are kind of grinding against the inside of the, what are those called? The wheel wells. The drums. And he says, what's wrong with the truck? And the guy says, I don't know, we had it in for checkup, it seems fine. And the guy gets out of the truck, he says, there's nothing wrong with this truck. And then he opens up the back, and this guy, you don't know how he even fit in the truck, steps out, and he's about twice as tall as the truck, and he stands up, and he's about twice as wide as the truck. And Tom Hanks walks over to this guy in shackles, hands and feet, and he walks up to him, and he looks up like this, and he says to him, we ain't going to have any trouble with you, are we, big boy? And he looks down at him, he says, no, sir. And it's a very interesting start to a relationship that changes Tom Hanks. Because about halfway through the story, one of the other criminals that is in prison under Tom Hanks' guard admits to committing the crime for which the big man is now sitting in death row for. So Tom Hanks now knows that this man that he's actually come to respect is on death row, sentenced to die for a crime he didn't commit. So I ask you again, what power does a false accusation have? Our passage today is going to speak about that very clearly. Isaiah talks about a man who was falsely accused of crimes punishable by death, crimes that he did not commit. And it's going to tell us something very important about ourselves. It's going to tell us something very important about God and God's plan for our lives. I'm going to need your help today. I'm going to need you to help me to read through this passage with me. So I'm going to ask that you take out your Bibles and turn with me to Isaiah. We're going to begin our reading in Isaiah chapter 52, and we're going to conclude in Isaiah chapter 53. You can find it on page 596 if you're flipping around. We're going to begin our reading together at Isaiah 52 in verse 13. You'll see the title there in the Pew Bibles is Suffering Servant. Gives you some clue as to what I've been talking about with regards to this man falsely accused. What I'm going to ask that you do with me right now is read just verse 13. And we're pretty much going to take this as verse by verse. And we're going to read one verse. I'm going to maybe mention something about that verse, and then we're going to move on to the next verse. So let's read together verse 13. See, my servant shall prosper. He shall be exalted and lifted up, and shall be very high. So far, the servant's identity is mysterious. It's unknown. We don't know who this is. Isaiah never names him. But we do see something about this servant. First of all, he's a servant of God. This is God speaking. He's a servant of God, and God says that he will, future tense, he will prosper. And he will be exalted and lifted up. Okay? I'm not going to talk about that right now, but you understand what that means. I'm just going to wait just a minute to talk about that because I want to get a couple more verses into it. Let's go with verse 14. Just as there were many who were astonished at him, so marred was his appearance beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of mortals. And let's finish with verse 15. So he shall startle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths because of him. For that which he had been told, they shall see, and that which they had not heard, they shall contemplate. So we see another clue as to what this suffering servant, as Isaiah calls him, will be doing. That many people will see him and be astonished at his appearance. That he's going to be marred and disfigured. What would cause that? What would cause a person to be bloody, bruised, and disfigured? A beating of some kind, of a severe kind. Because we're not just talking about a guy walking around with a black eye. Right? We see that pretty regularly, and that's not uncommon. We're talking about hockey players who would look at this guy and say, "What happened to you?" Hockey players with one or two teeth missing and a swollen cheek would look at this guy and say, "Wow, what is wrong with you? What happened to you?" He's beyond human semblance. We're talking about swollen in all the wrong places. We're talking about blood stains. We're talking about skin that's missing, torn off. This is a brutal beating, not just with fists, not just with clubs, but with lashes that tears through the skin. And he will startle, it says here, many nations. Another translation of that word, startle, is sprinkle. And basically, it's a hint at the work that this suffering man will do. He will sprinkle the nations, and it's an allusion to an offering. When you sacrifice an offering, you kill the animal, you drain the blood, you take the bowl in which the blood was sitting, you take that and you sprinkle it on something or someone that you wanted to make holy or righteous. If you have an item for the temple, if you were going to dedicate a new baptismal font, if you want to use that as an example, you would slaughter your animal, take the blood, and sprinkle the blood on the altar, on the, baptismal font, so that it was then made holy. And so they're hinting here that the work of this suffering servant will touch many nations and will sprinkle them, an allusion to a sacrifice, an allusion that will be filled out here before the end of our passage. Kings shall shut their mouths because of him. For that which has not been told them, they will see, and that which they had not heard, they shall contemplate. And so the things that the kings have rejected or turned their backs on will become apparent. The leaders, the rulers of different nations will recognize it and accept it. And their talk against this suffering servant will be closed off and shut down. Let's go on with chapter 53 and verse 1. Who has believed what we have heard, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Let's continue in verse 2. For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. A couple things just to notice here. Most scholars agree that Jesus was an ugly man. They don't think that he looks